I shot my father in the foot with his own service pistol the night he confessed to ruining my life, but that was years before the wedding, back when I still thought forgiveness was an option. He laughed it off as a family heirloom accident, but the bullet hole in his loafer became our little secret, a scar he hid like all his other lies. And there I was, 28 and staring down the aisle at my own happily ever after, wondering if I'd ever pull the trigger on the truth. The grand ballroom of the Omni Hotel in Norfolk, Virginia, smelled like salt air from the nearby naval base and overpriced lilies flown in from some Dutch greenhouse. It was the kind of venue where mid-level officers tied the knot, dreaming of promotions and picket fences, while the real power players sipped scotch in the officers' club. I'd picked it because Marcus, my fiancé, my anchor, had proposed right there on the pier last summer, with the USS Wisconsin looming like a steel ghost in the harbor. He was a lieutenant commander, all crisp whites and quiet confidence, the kind of man who made you believe in second chances. But as I stood in the bridal suite, adjusting the veil that my mother had sewn by hand before cancer took her, I could hear my father's voice booming from the lobby below. He was already 3 whiskeys in, holding court with Marcus's relatives like he owned the place. Aaliyah? Marrying up, I guess, he'd say later that night, his words slurring just enough to cut without drawing blood. But that was the hook, the prelude to the real gut punch. For now, in the suite, my best friend Tasha was fussing over my curls, spritzing them with that coconut oil mist that made me smell like home. South Carolina lowcountry, not this stiff Virginia tidewater. "Girl, you look like a queen," she said, stepping back to admire the gown. Ivory silk, off the shoulder, with a train that whispered against the carpet like a promise. I forced a smile, but my stomach twisted. This was supposed to be joy, pure and unfiltered, the kind of day that erased the bullshit. Instead, it felt like stepping into a minefield dressed in tulle. Downstairs, the string quartet was tuning up Vivaldi's Spring because Marcus hated anything too modern. Guests milled about, his Navy buddies in their mess dress, my cousins from Charleston in sundresses that screamed, "We're here for the open bar." And then there was Dad. Rear Admiral, retired, Harlan Brooks, silver fox with a chest full of ribbons he polished like trophies. He'd flown in from D.C. that morning, straight from some think tank gig where he advised on national security threats that sounded a lot like code for screw over the little guy. He spotted me first as I descended the grand staircase, my heels clicking like gunfire on marble. "Well, look at you," he drawled, that southern drawl he'd never lost despite 20 years in the Pentagon. His eyes raked over me, not with pride, but appraisal, like I was a used car he'd flipped for profit. "Didn't think you'd scrub up this nice." Marcus must be desperate. Laughter rippled from the cluster around him, his old squadron mates, Marcus's uncle who chuckled politely. Heat flooded my cheeks, but I swallowed it. This was his playbook, diminished to dominate. Always had been, since I was a kid trailing him to base picnics, watching him charm the brass while Mom and I faded into the wallpaper. I leaned in, voice low. "Save it for the toast, Dad. Wouldn't want to embarrass yourself." He just grinned, clinking his glass against mine. "Embarrass? Honey, that's your department." The words landed like a slap, casual as Confederate jasmine, but they stung deep. Because he knew, God, he knew why I was here, why this wedding felt like armor plating over a hull breach. We'd moved around a lot when I was growing up, Pensacola, San Diego, Groton. Dad climbing the ladder, Mom keeping the home fires burning with collards and cornbread. I was the good daughter, straight A's, ROTC scholarship to Annapolis. Dreamed of helming my own ship, charting courses through storms. But senior year, it all capsized. A scandal hit the academy. Missing funds from the Midshipmen's Trust, some slush fund for morale boosters. Fingers pointed everywhere, but they landed on me. The girl with the Admiral daddy, the one who'd signed off on a few reimbursements that didn't add up. I took the hit, expulsion, no honors, a black mark that sank any chance at commissioning. Collateral damage, Dad called it over the phone from D.C., his voice tinny and distant. "You'll bounce back, kiddo. Civilian life's not so bad." Bullshit. I bounced, all right, Bounced into community college, then a dead-end job at a shipyard in Newport News, welding hulls while my classmates skippered destroyers. Took me 5 years to claw my way into a logistics gig at the base, but the whispers followed. That Brooks girl? Yeah, the one who cooked the books. Mom died believing I'd stolen to fund some party spree. Dad? He got his star a month later, promoted on the wave of cleaning house. I didn't know then that he'd siphoned the cash himself for a mistress's condo in Arlington, or so the anonymous tip I'd gotten years later suggested. But suspicion festered like rust in salt water. Marcus was the buoy that kept me afloat. We met at a VFW fish fry, me nursing a beer, him in civvies, talking thermodynamics like it was poetry. He didn't care about the Annapolis stain, said it made me tougher than any plebe. You're my chief engineer, he'd joke, fixing what the Navy breaks. We built a life. Apartment in Ghent with harbor views, weekend sails on the Chesapeake. He proposed with his grandmother's ring, on one knee in the sand, waves lapping like applause. I said yes because with him, I could almost forget. But Dad's mockery at the rehearsal dinner the night before had cracked the facade. Over rubber chicken and Chardonnay, he'd stood for his toast. To Aaliyah, finally catching a real sailor. Hope he knows what he's signing up for. Snickers from the table. Marcus squeezed my hand under the cloth, but I saw the flicker in his eyes. Doubt? Pity? Later, in our hotel room, I confessed the old wound over bad takeout lo mein. Your dad's just salty you're outshining him, Marcus said, pulling me close. Tomorrow, we start fresh. Lies we tell ourselves to sleep. Now, as the quartet swelled into Pachelbel's canon, I walked the aisle alone, Mom gone, Dad demoted to spectator. Marcus waited at the altar, beaming like the sun off a carrier deck. Vows exchanged, ring slipped on with trembling fingers. The officiant, a grizzled chaplain named Ruiz, cleared his throat for the pronouncement. That's when it happened, the hook that yanked the line taut. Ladies and gentlemen, Ruiz intoned, his voice booming off the vaulted ceilings, before we seal this union, a special honor. Everyone rise for the Admiral. The room froze. Chairs scraped. Uniforms rustled. My father half stood, brow furrowed, assuming it was for him. His ego couldn't fathom otherwise. But the double doors at the rear swung open, and in strode a figure straight out of a history book. Vice Admiral Elena Vasquez, first woman to command the Atlantic Fleet, her white starched to perfection, chest ablaze with fruit salad. She wasn't just any brass. She was the one who'd signed my expulsion papers all those years ago. And now, she was striding toward me, a folder tucked under her arm like a verdict. Dad's face drained of color. What the hell, he muttered, sinking back into his seat. Guess whispered. Is that Vasquez? For real? Marcus's grip tightened on mine, confusion etching his features. Tasha, in the front row, shot me a look that said, Girl, you holding out on me? Vasquez reached the altar, saluted Marcus crisply, then turned to me. Petty Officer Aaliyah Brooks, she said, voice like gravel under treads, by order of the Secretary of the Navy, you are hereby reinstated with full honors, effective immediately. Your commission awaits. She extended the folder, my new orders, sealed with the eagle. The room erupted. Applause, gasps, a few confused claps. But I didn't move. My eyes locked on Dad, who looked like he'd swallowed his own anchor. This was it, the first shot in the broadside. Not forgiveness, but reckoning. I'd spent years piecing it together. The forged signatures, the mistress's bank records, the anonymous whistleblower who'd been me, emailing tips from burner accounts. Vasquez? I'd appealed to her directly last year, after digging up Dad's dirt. She hadn't believed me at first, said the Navy buried its scandals deeper than Davy Jones. But one late-night call, one leaked memo, and the tide turned. As confetti cannons popped and Marcus hooped, pulling me into a spin, I felt the weight lift. But not all of it. Dad was already slipping out the side door, his limp from that old accident more pronounced. He thought he could mock me one last time, play the patriarch.
Wrong.
The wedding was just the opening salvo. The real war started tomorrow. The reception kicked off like a Liberty call after a long deployment. Booze flowing, brass band blaring Motown covers, and that undercurrent of Navy gossip ready to torpedo any goodwill. I'd barely caught my breath from Vasquez's bombshell when Marcus swept me onto the dance floor, his hands firm on my waist. "Babe, you gotta spill. Reinstatement? Admiral drop-in? This is some Tom Clancy shit." His laugh was genuine, eyes sparkling under the disco ball they'd hung ironically from the chandelier. I wanted to melt into him, let the reinvention stick. But as we swayed to Ain't No Mountain High Enough, my gaze snagged on the empty chair where Dad had been. He'd vanished like smoke off a stack, probably nursing his pride in the hotel bar. I pulled some strings, I murmured, keeping it light. Truth was, I'd yanked ropes thick as mooring lines. After Mom's funeral 4 years back, I'd found her old lockbox. Letters from Dad's executive assistant in D.C., scented with Chanel and regret. That's when the pieces clicked, the fun skim, the frame job. I'd taken the fall to protect his legacy, he'd whispered once, drunk on bourbon at her grave. For the family, Aaliyah, you'd do the same. No, I wouldn't. But I had, silently, stupidly, because that's what daughters do in houses where love comes with conditions. Vasquez's involvement? Pure leverage. I tracked her down at a Women in Leadership symposium in D.C. last fall, cornered her in the ladies' lounge with a flash drive of evidence, bank transfers, witness statements from a jilted accountant who'd hated Dad since Nam. This isn't about revenge. I'd lied, palms sweaty. It's about justice. She stared me down, those hawk eyes dissecting me like a jag deposition. Brooke's blood runs toxic, she said finally. Your father's poison nearly sank my career too. Turns out, he'd undercut her promotion bid years ago, spreading rumors about her emotional instability. Sisterhood in the service? More like Survivor's Club. She agreed to the review on one condition: full exposure. No quiet settlements. The wedding announcement in the base paper had been the bait. I'd leaked it to her aide, knowing Dad would show. And he had, ripe for the public gutting. As Marcus twirled me, I spotted Tasha across the floor, fanning herself dramatically while whispering to Marcus's sister. "You sneaky queen," she texted me later. "I knew you had Admiral levels of petty." But the high crashed when the best man, Marcus's buddy from BUD/S, a SEAL named Jax, took the mic for his toast. To Aaliyah, from shipyard spark to fleet flagship. And to Harlan, "Sir, you raised a hell of a woman. Even if she outranks you now." Laughter boomed, but it was edged, the kind that hides knives. Dad wasn't there to take the hit. He texted me mid-dance. "Proud of you, kid. Call tomorrow."
Bull.
He was scrambling, phoning favors, trying to flip the narrative. I excused myself after the cake cutting, 3 tiers of red velvet, Mom's recipe, and slipped into the veranda overlooking the Elizabeth River. The night air was thick, humid as a Carolina summer, freighters moaning in the distance. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Aaliyah, it's Elena. He's lawyered up already. Says the reinstatement's a publicity stunt. You want me to pull the plug?" Her voice was smoke and steel, no bullshit. "No," I said, gripping the railing till my knuckles ached. Let him squirm. This was the betrayal's echo, deep, resonant, the kind that hollows you out. Dad hadn't just stolen money. He'd stolen my future, my name. I'd borne it like a court-martial, head high, while he sailed on. The mistress? Long gone, but her shadow lingered in every disappointed glance from his cronies. And the flip? Oh, he'd flip all right. Accuse me of forgery, of riding coattails. Controversial decisions? I'd made one already. Inviting him, giving him the stage to mock me one last time.
Why?
Because pain's a teacher, and his had forged me sharp. Back inside, the party's pulse thrummed. Marcus found me, loosening his tie. "You okay? Look like you're plotting a coup." I kissed him, tasting champagne and salt. Just thinking about tomorrow. Commissioning, can you believe it? He grinned, but there was a shadow. "Your dad. He cornered me earlier. Said some stuff about family secrets." "You sure you're good?" My blood iced. What had the bastard spilled? That I was unstable, like Vasquez? Or worse, the night of the shooting, when I'd confronted him with the evidence, pistol shaking in my hand? It was 2 years post-Mom, me crashing his DC apartment after a tip from the accountant. "You framed me," I'd accused, waving printouts. He laughed, that same mocking bark, poured me a scotch. "For the greater good, darlin'. Navy eats its young." Rage boiled. I grabbed his old Colt from the mantel, the one from his first tour. "Say it again." He did, smirking. The shot went wide, grazed his foot through the rug. "Jesus, Celia," he yelped, but no cops. "Family accident." We agreed, him hobbling to the ER with a cover story. Secret buried, but it festered. Now, with the wedding spotlight, would he exhume it? The band struck up at last, and couples paired off. I danced with Marcus, then Jax, who whispered, "Heard about the old man. You need backup." Seals, always spoiling for a fight. "Just watch the skies," I quipped. But as the night waned, Dad reappeared, slinking in like a sub on silent running. He cornered me by the dessert table, breath sour. "Nice show, kid." "Vasquez? Really? You think this erases the past?" His eyes darted, calculating, always 3 moves ahead. "It doesn't," I said evenly. "But it writes the future." He leaned in, voice a hiss. "Careful. I know things. That little mishap with my gun? One word, and your fairy tale's over." Threat wrapped in paternal concern. Classic Harlan. I smiled, sweet as pecan pie. "Try it. See how fast the jag hauls you in." He blanched, then chuckled, flip number 1. From aggressor to ally. "I'm on your side. Always have been. Let's toast to that." I clinked his glass, but my mind raced. The revenge wasn't the reveal. It was the unraveling. Let him think he'd won this round. Tomorrow, at the base ceremony, I dropped the real depth charge. His full confession, recorded that night after the shot, when pain loosened his tongue. "I did it for us," he'd slurred into my phone's voice memo. Us. What a joke. As fireworks cracked over the harbor, Navy tradition for big nights, I watched Dad schmooze Marcus's CO, all charm and backslaps. Controversial? Hell yes. Was I the villain for baiting him? Or him, for the betrayal that birthed this? No clear lines, just gray water and gathering storm. Dawn broke over Norfolk like a hangover, gray skies spitting rain on the flight deck of the USS Harry S. Truman, where my recommissioning waited. Marcus drove us in his beat-up Ford Bronco, wipers slapping rhythmically, the radio tuned low to some classic rock station crooning Springsteen. Born to run. Ironic, since I'd been running from Dad's shadow my whole life. He hummed along, one hand on the wheel, the other tracing circles on my knee. "Nervous?" he asked, glancing over. The new ensign bars on my collar glinted mockingly. "Nah." I lied, stomach churning like a prop and chop. Truth? This felt like Judgment Day, brass and all. Vasquez had pulled strings for the Truman, symbolic, her old command. The ceremony was small, a promotion board, Marcus's crew, Tasha as my witness. No press, but word spread fast in a town built on salt and secrets. Dad had texted at 4 a.m. "There for you, kid. 0900 sharp." As if he hadn't threatened to torpedo me hours earlier. We parked in the VIP lot, rain sheeting off the overhang. Sailors hustled past, ponchos flapping, calling ma'am. Even though I wasn't official yet, the air hummed with jet fuel and possibility. Inside the wardroom, coffee steamed in urns, Danish pastries arranged like ammo crates. Vasquez was already there, sipping black from a mug that said, "Boss of this bitch." She nodded me over. "Sleep?" "Like a rock," I said, pouring my own. Lie number 2. I'd replayed the wedding tape in my head. Dad's limp, his flip from mocker to mentor. Schemer to the core, he'd probably already lawyered up, spinning yarns to his old poker buddies in the Joint Chiefs Lounge. "He's here," she warned, checking her watch. "Brought reinforcements." His attorney, some weasel from K Street. My pulse kicked. Reinforcements? For what? A family brunch. But I knew. Containment. Harlan Brooks didn't lose, he pivoted. The board assembled. Captain Hale, my new CO, a JAG rep with a mustache like a broom, and Vasquez presiding. Marcus stood sentinel by the hatch, proud as punch. Then Dad entered, entourage in tow, the lawyer, slick in a Burberry trench, and a surprise, Uncle Ray, Dad's brother, the one who'd co-signed the mistress's lease way back. Family affair, Dad boomed, clapping my shoulder too hard. Looking sharp, Ensign. The title stuck in his throat, but he forced the grin. Uncle Ray hugged me awkward, muttering about water under the bridge. Bridge? More like the one he'd burned when he vouched for Dad's integrity during my expulsion hearing. The ceremony kicked off crisp, oaths recited, bars pinned with a clink that echoed like finality. Applause polite, then Vasquez took the podium. Ensign Brooks exemplifies resilience. Her journey? A testament to truth over tide. Subtle dig, tide as in turning, or Dad's tidal wave of lies. As she spoke, I felt Dad's eyes boring in, that lawyer scribbling notes. Then the twist. She gestured me forward. Ensign, your first order. Address the elephant. Heart hammering, I stepped up, folder in hand. The voice memo, transcribed, notarized. Admiral, board, there's unfinished business. Gasps rippled. Dad's face went the color of bulkhead paint. Aaliyah, don't, he hissed, half rising. But Vasquez's glare pinned him. I hit play. His voice filled the room, slurred but unmistakable. Yeah, I cooked the books. For the girl in Arlington. Aaliyah took the heat, 'cause she's tough. Family first, right? Static crackle, then my old plea. Why me, Dad? His laugh, bitter. 'Cause you were expendable. Silence crashed like a breaker. Uncle Ray sputtered. The lawyer's pen froze. Marcus's jaw dropped, but he nodded, steady. Dad flipped then, hard, from patriarch to penitent. It was a mistake. Stress of command. The lawyer cut in. Slander. Forget audio. But Vasquez held up a hand. We've verified. And there's more. The mistress's testimony, filed this morning. Chaos erupted. Dad lunging for the folder. Uncle Ray dragging him back. Jag barking for order. I stood frozen. The weight of it crashing. This was the secret unchained. The crime I'd borne like a barnacle. But controversial? God, yes. Was exposing him justice or matricide for the man who'd raised me? He'd beaten the system once. Now I was the system, turning the screw. They hauled him out, not in cuffs, but for questioning. Vasquez pulled me aside post-brouhaha. You did good, Brooks. But it's not over. He'll fight dirty. She was right. By noon, my phone blew up. Reporters from the Virginian Pilot, sniffing scandal. Admiral's daughter exposes fraud? Tasha called, frantic. Babe, Twitter's on fire. Brooks' betrayal trending. Marcus and I retreated to a dive bar off base, peeling Formica counters, Bud Light on tap. He bought the first round, clinking bottles. Proud of you, he said quietly. But was it worth it? The question hung, divisive as a filibuster. Worth the family implosion? The headlines painting me as the vengeful harpy? I sipped foam bitter. Had to be. For Mom. For me. But doubt crept. Dad's texts piled. You ruined us. Call off the dogs. Then flip to. I deserve it. Forgive? Emotional whiplash, his specialty. Uncle Ray emailed. He was protecting you from worse. Worse? Like what, his rot? Night fell rainy, us tangled in motel sheets off I-64, thunder rumbling like distant guns. Marcus traced my scars, emotional ones, the expulsion's brand. We're in this, he murmured. But as sleep tugged, I wondered, was revenge the chain or the key? The board had suspended Dad's pension pending review. Public fall from grace. Satisfying? Sure. But the emptiness echoed. Next morning, a package arrived at the base. Dad's service pistol, the Colt, wrapped in his old dress blues. Note inside. Yours now. Finish it. No amo. Symbolic? Or bait? I stared at it, rain pattering the window. The real climax loomed. Not the ceremony, but the trial. And in that, the split. Hero or heel. The JAG investigation hit like a squall line, swift, soaking, uprooting everything in its path. 2 weeks post-wedding, and Norfolk buzzed like a hornet's nest kicked by a boot. Dad holed up in his Arlington condo, lawyer to the hilt, issuing statements through a PR firm that painted him as the scapegoat of a daughter's ambition. Ambition? Try survival. I reported to my new billet on the Truman, logistics officer, ensign stripes itching like new boots, while Marcus prepped for a med cruise. Our honeymoon? Postponed to Bermuda, once the storm cleared. Tasha crashed on our couch that first week, armed with takeout and true crime pods. "This is better than cereal," she declared, scrolling X on her phone. Hashtags flew. Admiral down, Navy whistleblower, my face plastered beside Dad's, me stern in whites, him avuncular in his memoir jacket. "They love you," she said. "Or hate you." Picket lines at the gate yesterday. Support our veterans. Veterans like Dad, the sacred cow. Controversial decisions? Mine, leaking the audio to the brass. His, flipping the script in interviews. Aaliyah's always been troubled. The shooting? Self-defense. The shooting. It surfaced day 3, courtesy of Uncle Ray's concerned call to the pilot. Harlan feared for his life. The article spun. Reporters swarmed the base, mics thrust like bayonets. Vasquez shielded me, rerouted mail, no comment policy, but the damage seeped. Marcus's CO pulled him aside. "Solid officer, your wife. But family drama. Watch it." Watch it? Like I was a liability, a barnacle on his career. I confronted Dad via video, him in a crisp polo, backdrop the Potomac glittering mockingly. "Self-defense? I shot your foot, not your head." He leaned in, eyes weary, flip 3, from victim to confessor. "You don't get it, kid. I built this for you, for all of us. The skim? One-time thing. Your mother knew." "Knew?" Mom, who'd cried into her pillow after my expulsion, blaming herself for not seeing the signs. "Lie." But it wormed doubt. Had she suspected, covered for him too? The hearing loomed. Administrative, not criminal, Navy protecting its own. Dad's strategy? Character assassination. Witnesses lined up. Old COs swearing my instability, the accountant recanting under pressure, coerced testimony. Uncle Ray testified via Zoom, voice cracking. Harlan's a hero. Aaliyah. She's hurt him deep. Hero. The words soured like bilge water. I'd idolized him once, saluting at his promotions, polishing his shoes. Betrayal's bite, realizing the pedestal was plywood. Climax built in the tribunal room, stark fluorescence, Virginia humidity fogging the windows. Vasquez presided, face granite. I took the stand first, voice steady. He framed me to save himself. I bore the crime, expulsion, lost dreams, for his greater good. Exhibits flashed, memos, transfers. Dad's turn. He shuffled up, limp exaggerated, eyes misty. I love my daughter. Made mistakes, yes. But she pulled that trigger in rage. Ask yourself, who's the real threat? Jury of peers, colonels, captains, shifted uneasy. Split sides? Here it was. Was I avenger or abuser? Him, flawed father or felon? Marcus waited outside, thumbs drumming his blues. Whatever happens, we're good, he said post-testimony, over chow hall slop. But tension crackled, his buddies ribbing him about the Brooks curse. Tasha warned, he's flipping again. Heard he's cutting a deal, naming names higher up. Higher? Like the brass who'd signed off on his promo? The web widened, controversial as hell. Expose him fully and the Navy bled, shield him, and I drowned. That night, alone in our Ghent walk-up, I unkissed the Colt. Cold steel, ghosts in the grain. Loaded it, ammo from the base armory, borrowed for qualification. Drove to Arlington under cover of dusk, rain-slicked eye, 95 a blur. Dad's building. Glass monolith, doorman nodding me up. He answered buzzed, shirt untucked. Aaliyah? Christ,
Come.
The condo reeked of scotch and regret. Framed citations crooked on walls. Mistress's ghost in the throw pillows. Deal's off, he said, pouring doubles. They want my stars, my pension. All for a stupid fling. Flip 4. Broken man, seeking absolution. Forgive me. His hand on mine, trembling, human. I pulled the gun, casual as a handshake. Why'd you mock me? At the wedding. After everything. He blinked, then laughed hollow. To toughen you. Like I was toughened.
Bull.
Control, always. Put it down, kid. We're Brooks. We don't fold. The room spun. Memories flashing. Beach days in Coronado. Him teaching me knots. The expulsion call. His silence deafening. I pressed the barrel to his knee. One truth, Dad. All of it. He cracked then, spilling. The skim funded not just the affair, but bribes for a star, generals in the pocket, careers greased. Mom knew, enabled it for stability. She begged me to confess after your fall. I couldn't. Betrayal layered, a reef of rot. Tears tracked his cheeks. Shoot if you must. End it. Finger on trigger, world narrowed. Controversial? The ultimate fork, mercy or massacre. Readers, hell, me split. Villain for the frame, or victim lashing out. I lowered the gun.
No.
You live with it. Clicked the safety, tossed it on the couch. His sob followed me down the hall, raw, real. Back home, Marcus waited, concern etched. Where? Closing the book, I whispered, collapsing into him. But the twist brewed. Next morning, Vasquez called. Your father's talking. Big fish, admirals, senators. You lit the fuse. The war expanded, me at the helm. The fallout cascaded like dominoes in a gale. Senators subpoenaed, headlines screaming. Navy corruption probe, from wedding vows to courtroom blows. 6 months post-hearing, and Dad's empire crumbled. Demoted to lieutenant in absentia, pension slashed, facing federal charges in a D.C. courtroom that smelled of polished oak and desperation. I sailed with a Truman's battle group, ensign no more, promoted JG after the probe credited my courageous disclosure. Marcus commanded a Hello Squadron, our Bermuda honeymoon finally cashed in, pink sands, conch fritters, nights where the Atlantic whispered forgiveness. But peace? Elusive as fair winds. Dad wrote from pretrial house arrest, letters in his looping script, flipping between remorse and rage. You saved the Navy, destroyed your father. Hero or heartbreaker. Enclosed, the Colt, refinished, engraved for Aaliyah, Captain's courage. Captain? Presumptuous, but prophetic. Vasquez hinted at accelerated command school. Tasha visited port in Rota, Spain. Us pounding paella and plotting her own Navy app. Twists coming, she predicted, scrolling feeds. She was right. The trial's final week, prosecution rested on my testimony, the frame, the shooting as defensive confrontation. Dad's defense? A bombshell witness. Mom's oncologist, swearing she'd confessed on her deathbed. Harlan innocent. Aaliyah's resentment fueled the lies. Forged notes? Or truth? The courtroom split, protesters outside chanting, justice for Harlan, versus truth for survivors. I took the stand, suit starched, heart lead. He betrayed me, us for power. I bore his crime, lost my path. Revenge?
No.
Accountability. Dad watched from the dock, cuffed subtle, eyes pleading, final flip, from fighter to fallen. His closing, she's my daughter. I failed her. But don't let bitterness sink us all. Jurors wept. Reporters typed furious. Verdict. Guilty on embezzlement. 5 years Leavenworth. Light sentence. Plea bargained. No jail for the bribery ring. Higher-ups walked on technicals. Controversial end. Justice partial. Debates raging on Fox and MSNBC. Whistleblower witch hunt. I visited him pre-trial, through plexiglass. Why the letters? He shrugged, older overnight. To say sorry.
And
proud. First time real. You. Forgiving, I said. but not forgetting. Twist. Post-sentencing, a package from Uncle Ray. Inside, Mom's unsent letter, dated expulsion eve. Harlan's mistake was mine too. Protect him, Aaliyah. For love. She'd known, covered, her secret, born silent. The betrayal? Familial hydra, heads multiplying. No clear villain. All flawed, all complicit. Back aboard, under Caribbean stars, Marcus and I danced on deck, slow, to the hum of diesels. Happy ending, he asked, chin on my shoulder. Or tragic? I laughed, salty breeze tangling my hair. Debate fodder. That's the point. Dad's appeal loomed, flips inevitable.
But me?
I charted my course. Captain's track, revenge's wake fading. Years on, at my first command, a literal combat ship off Norfolk, I hung the Colt in my sea cabin, bullet hole patched like a scar. Weddings mocked, admirals risen, secrets surfaced. Life's a long transit, tense, twisting, never tidy. But in the gray, we sail.